This week's demo is very similar to last week. What we're doing is we're going to modify it to use lists. So the specification has changed a bit. Instead of depositing into only this savings account, we can now deposit into either the savings or loan. And when we view the balance, it will ask us which account we want to view. So if we look at the sample IO, you'll notice that when we deposit, it asks us for an account type, and then it deposits in. And also, when we view the accounts, it also asks us for an account type. If we try and deposit into an account that doesn't exist, it should print out an error, no such account. Okay, the first thing we're going to do here is we're going to modify the account, and we're going to convert these two fields into one linked list of account. I'm going to call it accounts. Note the angular brackets here. We're making a linked list of account. I will initialize this linked list with a new linked list of account, like that. Now, linked list is not available by default. You must import it. So at the top, we can import it. It lives in java.util. Now we need to update our constructor. So instead of setting these fields to a new account, we're going to be adding these two accounts into the accounts variable. Accounts.add, and then I can add it in. Next, what I'm going to do is I'm going to create the lookup and the match patterns. We need the lookup pattern because we're going to be looking up accounts by their name. So let's create the lookup pattern. We're looking for a single account. I'm going to call this method just account, and we're looking for a type. That's our search criteria. In here, we're going to do a for each loop over the accounts list, and then I'm going to check, does this account have that type? If it does, we'll return that account. Otherwise, at the end of the loop, if no matches were found, we'll return null. Note how the lookup pattern is extremely similar to the any pattern. Instead of returning true here, we return the actual account. And instead of returning false, we return null. So null is a special value which means nothing. Okay, let's create this match pattern here called hasType. So I'll create a new Boolean method, and I'm going to name it hasType. And we're going to make it give us a type, and then we're going to return true if our type equals the type that we're checking for. Okay. Next, we need to use this account. So I'm going to modify the withdraw method and the transfer method because these two methods don't change. The specification has not changed. So there is no more savings account. But let's create it. So I'm going to make a new local variable called savings account. And I'm going to use that lookup method called account to look up the savings account. So I'm giving it the type. So it's going to search through that list, find the savings account, and put it into the savings account variable. The transfer method, I can do the same thing. And we also need the loan account. I'll just directly put in here the lookup pattern, account for loan. Cool. Next, we're going to need to modify our deposit method. So the deposit method should first prompt for an account type and then deposit money into it. So let's make a read method here, read type, so the prompt I believe was account type, so I will ask the user to input the type of the account, and then I will use the lookup pattern with that account type they've just entered. If all goes well, the account they've entered should be stored into the account variable, and then we can use that variable when we deposit money into it. Lastly, we need to also change our show method. So we can do the same thing here. We read an account type, then we use the lookup pattern and store it into account. And then we can print that account out. Cool. So I deposited $10 into the loan account and that seemed to work. Now we've done the happy case. So when we put in the correct name for the account types, that's the happy case. But what happens if we try and show an account that doesn't exist? We get null. What happens when we try and deposit into an account that doesn't exist? Oh. We've actually got an exception now, and the program has crashed. So we need to check, before we use anything in the lookup pattern, we need to check to see if this is null or not. Because if it's null, it doesn't exist, and we can't use it. So the line directly after you use the lookup pattern, check to see if it exists. If the account is not null, then it must exist. Otherwise, if the account was null, let's print an error. No such account exists. Same when we show an account. We can use the opposite. If the account is null, then we can print an error. No account exists. Else, we actually print the correct account. Let's clear the terminal. And it says no such account. Awesome.